Hey everyone, Spooky here. Welcome to my list of the top 5 PvP weapons in Dark Souls 3. Please be forewarned that the opinions I have on these weapons are based on extensive testing and include parameters other than just effectiveness, such as the fun of the weapon and the enjoyability of the moveset. I will be fair to the strength of certain weapons, however, and exclude weapons that I mainly use for the fun factor, such as the Murakumo and the Irithyll Straightsword, which are my main armaments on my fair PvP build. First off, I have some honorable mentions. The S-Stock. Yes, I know the S-Stock should be on the actual list, but I find that whether it's in the hands of a spamming noob or a patient pro, it remains a boring, predictable, and fairly mid-tier weapon. The moveset's extremely beatable with parries, hyper armor, and patience. It's feared for the spam that most users have adopted, yet when you take your time and even force trades with it, you'll often outdamage it, even if they're wearing the Leo ring. The Washing Pole. This weapon is powerful, very powerful. And actually, it's my go-to weapon when I want to teach somebody a lesson, but it forces most players without the skill to properly use it to run away constantly and rarely attack. It's obscenely boring, and can be beaten by players with even a basic grasp of parrying, as most players will just wait at a distance and then run attack over and over. It's much more powerful in the hands of a skilled PvPer who can stay within range of its tip and be highly aggressive. Onto the main list. Number 5, the Asura Greatsword. The Asura Greatsword is a truly incredible weapon, from the deceptive timing and Leo ring proc on the roll attacks, to the extremely light weight and relatively massive damage. It's a mere 8 units with 1.5 or more times the damage of similarly weighted weapons. It has hyper armor as well, and a weapon art that effectively makes it a charging lance weapon. This blade is an efficient player's dream, as its pros over other Greatsword class weapons vastly outweigh the cons. For example, the Profane Greatsword does more damage, but it weighs more, and it has a worse moveset with regard to the rolling and weapon art attacks. Number 4, the Black Knight Glaive. This weapon is truly terrifying. It has an extremely powerful moveset, as do all the Glaive-type halberds, with repeatable hyper-armored chops that can make the small weapon user cower in his boots. Glaive-type halberds are also extremely good against parriers, as they can only be parried close up at the shaft and will cut right through spammers. The combos involving this weapon have been greatly nerfed, but some still remain viable as catches, like the L2 into R1 is a great way to protect the entire area around your character. The Gundyr halberd was very close to taking this spot, but I once again find that efficiency is so much more important in Dark Souls. The weapon art is not an invitation to be parried like the Gundyr's, and the weight and extremely high damage on quality builds just push this weapon into legendary status. Number 3, the Goddard Twin Swords. The Goddard Twin Swords are the bane of many players, for a number of reasons, but first let me say I excluded the Dark Sword as I didn't want multiples of the same type of weapon on the list, and therefore chose the strongest one overall. The most powerful tool that the Goddard Twin Swords has is the rolling L1, which is extremely damaging, extremely fast, and can be paired with the Leo ring for even more damage, and benefits immensely from the magnetic roll attacks of Dark Souls 3. These swords can also be buffed for more damage, and often outdamage most other weapons on trades. What does this all mean, you might ask? The Goddard Twin Swords can be used by good players and complete scrubs alike, to fearlessly counter most anything the opponent can do, outdamaging them and netting wins against much more skilled opponents. On top of the immensely bothersome rolling L1 spam, which can be delayed to avoid parries, the entire moveset is also extremely good. The running L1 with both blades out greatly lessens the skill involved in roll catching by swinging twice. Standing over a downed opponent and hitting L1 as they stand will also often get hits based on the same mechanic. If an opponent is better than you and threatening the parry, you can also do the weapon art to completely avoid it and do immense damage in the process. These are mostly just tactics that anyone can use. On a skilled player, these weapons are one of the few that can fight anything, without a need for backup weapons. That being said, I must say that I really dislike fighting them, as they force the opponent to adjust his playstyle just to counter the extreme overuse of the rolling L1. Most players have adopted the strategy of just rolling X amount of times and hitting L1. It's very boring, and these weapons have so much more to offer than just that move. Number 2, the Gargoyle Flame Spear. The Gargoyle Flame Spear is the king of spears in Dark Souls 3, and maybe my favorite in the entire series. Picking apart opponents from an insane distance is only one of the massive advantages of this weapon. On a patient player controlling space well, this weapon is capable of netting easy wins. On a player that's aggressive and uses spacing and running attacks done at random, it's nearly unbeatable. I will admit that with most players, the Goddard twin swords are much more usable, but by dedicating the time to learning the distances and punishes of this weapon, almost any opponent with any weapon is a complete cakewalk. Just in my first week of playing, I had amassed over 50 perfects with this monster. Using block bluffs and run attacks, as well as intermittent spam and running R2 parry punishes, this weapon feels like a love letter to players with aggression and domination in their hearts. It often feels overwhelming to face a good spear user, and to simply bulldoze a fight club with nothing but this long pointy stick makes me feel like I'm truly being rewarded for going in the face of what FromSoft have created with their turtle and run combat design, as it just pokes holes in the competition. Number 1. The Karthus Curved Sword. Karthus Curved Sword is far and away my number 1 weapon in Dark Souls 3. It is one of the most absurdly simplistic weapons, yet the reward for pumping time and effort into mastering it is too great to ignore. The run attacks are lightning fast, the roll catches and punishes are unmatched. It shreds Goddard players into tiny chunks when they try to use the rolling meme stab. This weapon is long, speedy, and almost unpunishable, as long as you're attacking close enough to force your opponents to roll. The running R2 and the weapon art swiftly dodge parries, and the sheer damage you can inflict, especially when buffed, is absurd. I've often destroyed opponents in 3 to 4 hits with this disgusting blade. It's as fast as the S-Stock with a closing speed that can end hyper armor attacks as the opponent is swinging before the armor kicks in. It catches better than the meme swords, it trades better than almost anything but an Ultra, and it is by far the most heavily overpowered weapon in Dark Souls 3. And it's fun to use. When I use it, I equip nothing else but Cestus for parrying. It's even hard to parry due to the minimal swing time on run attacks. I could honestly talk for hours about the power of this weapon, but I will leave you with a more evocative thought. When you think of this weapon, you should see this weapon. Truly God tier. On a final note, I feel I need to point out that, in my opinion, the best general use build for PvP is a quality build, using the Black Knight Glaive as the main weapon with the Karthus Curved Sword as backup. For most players, this will give a great balance of attacks while keeping damage output consistently high. I was using this build day 3 of playing the game, but after a certain YouTuber posted a video using these weapons together and a huge amount of players began using them, I abandoned the combo in favor of other options. I will make a few videos in the future about serious PvP builds that I use and not just the cosplay ones. Thanks everyone for watching this far. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Spooky. See you next time, dudes.